the left has gone ahead and said that they are for drilling because last time I checked, Obama voted against drilling offshore in late 2007. So that's the problem I have with the left. And with the right, basically this idea that we can drill, baby, drill, like that's going to work. Let me give you some facts. Basically, we can produce up to 4% of the world's oil in things such as ANWR. But we consume over 25%. So you do the math. That means we're going to need to invest in alternative energies, infrastructure, wind, biofuel, diesel, to go ahead and compensate for our need for energy. So both sides are completely wrong in the sense that, yes, we need to drill, that's true, but it needs to be part of more of a comprehensive plan to go ahead and fit into the needs that we have as Americans.
I just want to say, I disagree with what my friends on the right have to say about ANWR. I'm doing a cost-benefit analysis of the amount of oil in ANWR. One can clearly determine that it does not make any sense to drill, just for the matter of fact that there's not enough oil in there to make a significant impact on the oil reserves that we have today. So I just want to say that I respect you, but I disagree.
Okay, instead of having a follow-up to this, because I think you guys have run it into the ground or drilled it in now, at least nobody said nuclear. Let's tie this energy issue to, you mentioned a couple of countries we'll come back to when it comes to foreign policy. But right now for energy policy, we talked about Iran having oil, we don't want to be dependent on them. Go back to an interesting country that I'm very familiar with. Why are we so rather, what's the best word, conflictual in our policies toward a country that has more resources than any place on the planet? They're an Eastern European country. They're the biggest piece of real estate on this planet. It's called Russia. What do you think our policy with the Russians should be? They have a lot of oil, a lot of gas, a lot of coal, a lot of timber, a lot of rare earth elements and metals like lithium for what kind of batteries. So, since it's on the list of questions about Russia, I thought I'd move on to Russia here. And I'll let the independents deal with this one first.
Well, basically, I'll just talk about Russia's a very sticky situation because they are a global power, as we all know. So first off, we have to refute everything that they've done in Georgia as saying that that violated sovereignty. But at the same time, we need to work with Russia as global powers in distributing fuels throughout the world. So as I said, it's a very sticky situation. I think it's something we have to pay attention to day to day. It does change. But I said we have to work with Russia because, as I said, they are a global power.
I guess I'll talk. We've had this, concept of, it comes back to the USSR being, pushed back the communists. And I guess I kind of think that, we should start working with Russia. But, we have to, I guess, cooperate. We can't just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. For example, if we're heavily involved in drilling in the Caspian Sea and in the Black Sea. I don't think that the United States would really appreciate Russia coming into the Gulf of Mexico and starting doing operations in there. I think being realistic with Russian culture would be more cooperative, more productive.
All right. I think with Russia, obviously they've come a long ways since their days as the Soviet Union when we were in direct conflict with them. They are a democracy now, albeit a very thin one. They're the leader Putin right now is trying to stick in and trying to stay in there and keep his hand in the government. I think it's something that we have to work with them, realizing that Putin's going to be the main man that we have to go to. They're a very powerful country still, and they've got a lot of resources, and they should be our allies. We can work with them on a lot of great issues. Dealing, especially, with human rights kind of things. They've had some problems in dealing with, going to Georgia, and I think it's something where we have to, tell them that it's not going to be acceptable in the world front, and that, as a large, great power, that you just can't do that. So we have to be stern with them, but at the same time, we do have to, lead them along and say, okay, this is how it's going to be, but we're going to work with you in dealing with it.
Russia does have a vast amount of natural resources, but if anything we've seen is that they are well aware that they have a vast amount of natural resources and control who takes it. Ukraine relies on Russia for almost all of its heating bills, and Ukraine was not willing to give them a certain amount of money that they wanted for it. So Russia pointed nuclear weapons at them and said they'd fire them. So Ukraine said they'd pay the bill and they got their oil back. But the problem is that we cannot not work with Russia, because not working with Russia doesn't make any sense. We're working with other countries like China, who have terrible human rights violations, are building coal plants almost every week, which put major strain on our economy and on the world itself. But we deal with them. So we have to deal with Russia. How could we not? Now, working with them is necessary completely, but we have to work with this large country because of their ability to connect not only with their natural resources, but also to be a major player in the world on all issues. We work with Russia all the time, or at least we should, especially in the United Nations Security Council. Russia is still a major player in the world, so if we're going to deal with them, we must deal with them with all due caution.
We're not going to have any follow-up to that one. I think you guys covered it quite well. Continuing on here in foreign policy. We got 3 games going on at once. We got the Iraqi game going with the surge. We got the Afghan game going with the Taliban and Al-Qaeda coming over from the third part of the game, the western mountains of Pakistan. The presidential candidates have expressed very different views about how this game should be played, where it should be focused on. There's differences, and what would be the end game, and how far will we go when it comes to questions of sovereignty when it comes to this game. So we're going to start out with I think the Democrats on this one. While you're discussing this, discuss your candidate's position.
Sure. The candidate's position is something that I personally am a little bit different on, but we'll focus on that first off. Senator Obama has stated that he will pull us out of Iraq in the next 16 months. All combat brigades will be gone except for basic training personnel and that type of thing, which is unfortunately exactly what has to happen. The success we're having in Iraq may be large, or it may be working or whatever or not, but we violated the state sovereignty. We violated international law by going in there in the first place. So once they want to take over, which they do, we should allow their government to do that. Moving on to Afghanistan, which is actually where the problem has been and will continue to be until we realize that Al-Qaeda has been there, the Taliban has been there since 2001 when they bombed us on September 11th. Point out, there were no terrorists. I repeat, 0 terrorists on any of those planes from Iraq. They were from Saudi Arabia, which we haven't done anything about, Syria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. We're working with the Pakistani government because we realize that the terrorists are indeed in the northern part of that country. We've unfortunately violated their sovereignty as well, because instead of actually talking to them when we're going to go further invade their country, we just go ahead and do it anyway. And the Pakistan government is responding in kind. They shot at our troops the other day because we invaded their country, which is an act of war in every other sense. The problem is that indeed Afghanistan is where the major front on terrorism is and always has been. We've just been distracted by Iraq for some reason. Afghanistan is unfortunately where Senator Obama believes we need to go next and solve that problem right away. Afghanistan, whether you believe we should be there or not, we have to be there because that's where the problem is. We could actually do good things in Afghanistan if we worked with the Afghanistan government and their military to take out the Taliban and to work with Pakistan to get Al-Qaeda out of their country, because they don't want them either. In fact, no one wants terrorists in their country.
Well, first of all, I think it's easy to look back in hindsight and say that the Iraq War was a mistake, and that we did have a failed strategy, and that it was not handled properly. But what we now need to do is stop looking backwards and pointing fingers and saying, oh, we should have done this, we could have done that. What we need to do is look forward and say, what are we going to do now to solve, how are we going to wrap this Iraq War up? And Senator Obama proposes to have a timetable of 16 months. And I don't agree with that, because that also gives a timetable for Iran to increase their influence, and it also gives a timetable for Al-Qaeda to move back in. And yes, I do agree that we should have not taken our eye off the ball with Afghanistan. But recently, the new strategy presented by General Petraeus with the surge has become successful, and we are seeing victory in sight in Iraq. And to leave prematurely would be an absolute disaster. We'd probably just end up back there in years to come. I think we need to use the same surge strategy that we have used in Iraq with Afghanistan. And we need to be in both areas at the same time until it's under control and in a stable environment.
I guess I'll just talk about Afghanistan. I think it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I agree with everyone that